Yeah, not having a job is not a reason to not enforce the laws. Could you get me the charter of each and every bank of the United States? Mhm. You know, this concept that, well, if he doesn't have a job, we don't have to enforce his rights. And the Constitution isn't enforceable unless you're employed, and we just can't let him have his sons. I'm going to go through the charter of each bank of the United States and ask them, yes, is it a requirement to have a job to be able to open a bank account, or do you have to have enough money to do that? Most of them have a minimum deposit. Yes. Your your whole being employed as a condition for law enforcement, that won't hold water either. See, when you have knowledge of an actual crime, the laws of the United States have to be enforced. And when you made up bullshit about, well, he's a mentally ill homeless man that's not employed and we don't have to enforce the laws for him, that's like a bank denying me the right to open a bank account when I do have the necessary amount of money for the minimum deposit to open. Yeah. Now they could say, well, you have credit problems. Is that what Well, why don't we get the credit score of all your banking customers? Could you get me the FICO score of each and every FDIC insured account of every bank customer of the United States? I'd like to know how many of them have to have a 700 or above, yes, to be able to open a bank account. Now, we did have that experience in Vancouver. You remember that, Heidi? Yeah. We were at the Vancouver Mall and I thought I'd stop by a bank, and I don't remember the exact reason for it, but they have a different credit rating system where the banks, they, well, get me the credit rating system of each and every bank customer of the United States. As I understand these charters, you cannot discriminate against the customer opening or having a bank account because of being employed or unemployed. Poop. This concept of Americans only getting their rights enforced as long as they have a job. I don't see it. I see that you do enforce the rights of Americans because of them being citizens. Yes. Now, these bank charters, yeah, just get me those in every state of incorporation because for every bank that deprives Americans of the right to open and have an account because they're not in the family, yes, because they don't have a job, yes, I'm going to sue every fucking bank right now. I'm absolutely sure that it violates banking regulations that you have to be in the family to be able to have a bank account in the bank. Well, there's the FICO score, yes, of those that are consumers, right? That is oftentimes used as the reasoning to allow for a bank loan, yes. Then there's the bank's credit rating system that they look at when you open up a new account. Why don't you get me the credit ratings of all chartered banks in the United States? Now, you cannot discriminate because of not being in the family. Yeah. You cannot say somebody has to be employed if they have the minimum amount of money necessary to open any bank account. And to deprive them of the use of the banking system because of them not being employed or not having a good enough credit rating. I think there could be a lawsuit in that. Now, when I go through well, you're the sheriff. Did you have to have a job to open a bank account? Did you have to have a certain credit rating? Did you have to belong to an association, homeowners association, a nonprofit association, an association that is the process of the unincorporated organization that is not a legal entity separate from the persons who compose it? Yeah. Um, well, what associations do you belong to? You belong to the Sheriff's Association? Why don't we go through law enforcement's involvement in every association? Yeah. that said, well, we do support the laws and we are hard on crime and we would never allow for child exploitation or child abuse. Oh, because I did mention I would sue your individual associations. Yes. For those that have constitutions or charters. Yes. Where they have specifically defined Danny Glick, the president of the. Why don't you get me every share that belongs to every association that thinks that they don't have to enforce the laws when Danny Glick. I'd like to know the employees of every association that every badge in this nation belongs to, where they would say that they do have a duty and obligation to enforce the laws. And then get me the association that, each county sheriff belongs to, each undersheriff, every jailer, in every jail in every county of the United States. Uh-huh. Now, um, these associations, the Association of American Law Schools, another organization of U.S. law schools that have each graduated at least 3 annual classes of students, yes, the AALS, that are all ABA accredited. Yeah. Why don't we look through them? Poop, their faculty. Mm-mm. Then the associative rights, the constitutional guarantees dealing with joint actions of individuals, especially the rights to the freedom of petition, freedom of assembly, and freedom of association. Depriving me of constitutional guarantees where I could file a lawsuit as Paul C. Budnick, yes, and Marilyn Van Proyen. And we could sue Clallam County together for you refusing to acknowledge the rights of myself and herself. Yeah. Now, we could have some joint lawsuits. Yes. I can name myself and the minors named that are over the age of 14. Pooch. Now, when you really think about the combination of the different lawsuits available to us, we have a fucking lot of lawsuits. So why don't we look at these guarantees that you refuse to enforce because I'm not employed? Marilyn's not employed, is she? She's associate pastor there at Kingsway Foursquare Church. Is she on the payroll at Kingsway? She receives some sort of compensation. I would have thought she was upset that my sister was in a picture misrepresenting her actual identity. Now, if you really look at the associative rights that I have as an American citizen and she has as an American citizen, and the rights that my sons have and the rights that her children have, yeah, there's got to be a good reason why this county, yes, this state, and every state of the United States doesn't understand how we could associate, yes, our lawsuits together so as to extract a great amount of damages and negligence right now. Now, I've usually included something about Susan Bowers not being Marilyn Van Proyen. Yeah. And then I began noticing that Mike got all my mail for the last 5 years. And, well, let's look at a combination of lawsuits involving my kids and her and myself. Yes, because there could be some new variations of the lawsuit where I am not the only named party. We could have a whole new breed of lawsuits. I'd like to speak to her. It could be that Marilyn would like to get some money. And she'd like it if you would enforce her victims' rights and her victims' resources. Since Mike decided to pay Susan Bowers to be in a picture holding Regina? Yes. And since you decided that Mike would get all my mail so that you could arrest me for crimes that I did not commit because of failure to appear, because you as a county thought that the man should make all the decisions for the family. Some variations of lawsuits. I'd like to speak to my sons that are going to be 17 and 16 in January. Yes. And that 15-year-old Pope. And that I don't really know how old Maximilian is, but let's say I filed some lawsuits that have my name and their names on them. Yes. Is there any possible way you understand the liability of what's going on?